Hi, my name is Donna and welcome to my sewing journey. So the holidays are upon us and I'm going to be doing a lot of cooking and baking, and I thought I need a new apron. I always need a new apron. And I decided to do a pattern that would allow me to have a towel actually hanging on my hip, because I wash my hands a lot and I dry them a lot and I don't want my apron itself to get wet, and if I put a towel right into the apron, that'll get wet. And then I just wanted to be able to keep changing it out, because I do wash my hands a lot when I'm baking, and I know that I go through 4 or 5 towels. So I came up with a pattern that's going to allow me to have a little loop that I'll be able to hang the towel on, so the towel will be right with me as I'm hurrying along and doing all my stuff. So I don't have one to show you before I sew, because this is a brand new pattern. So let's get started sewing. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to decide what size that you need. So I measured from my shoulder to my shoulder, and that was 12 inches. So I measured from my shoulder here to my belly button, which was about 12.5 inches, somewhere around there. And then I measured how long I wanted it, and I figured that I wanted around 21 to 22 inches. And then around my waist, I wanted to stop on my sides. So around my waist, I measured that, and then I decided I want to have it like ruffled, a little bit of ruffle to it, so that it's like gathered and it's just a lot more material protecting my pants. I drop a lot of things. So I used those measurements to try to figure out the measurements, and this is what I came up for my body. You can kind of adjust these based on knowing that this was 12 inches, this was 12.5, and adjust yours based on that. So the first thing that I did was, I really wanted a 30-inch panel, but I was digging through my scraps and I found this gorgeous canvas that I absolutely had to make the apron with. But it was 27 inches, but that's okay. I just adjusted it so it won't have quite as much gather as I wanted, just because it's 27 inches and I was hoping to find 30. But this is going to be gathered down to about 23. So it'll only be a little bit of gather because it's only 27. So it'll be between 22 and 23. But it's 27 by 22. And I'm going to hem the bottom. I actually left the salvage on the bottom of this so that I only had to fold it over once to sew it. So that's the apron part. The top part is 13 by 13. Then I'm going to have a pocket on the top of mine right here. That's where I put my phone so that I don't keep losing it. So this is going to get folded in half. And so this one is, because the other piece was 13 and I just extended above, I just went ahead and made 13 by 8. And we'll be folding this over to make the pocket out of this. Then the strap. So the strap that goes around here, you can do it a lot of different ways. You can make it a tie or whatever. I know that I'm just going to loop it over my head. I don't need an adjustable one. And since mine's not going to be adjustable, I'm going to make it, when it's finished, it should end up about 22 inches. So I grabbed the piece of fabric that is 23 by 2.5. I put a pin on here because the waist strap is also 2.5, so I won't forget which piece goes where. Speaking of the strap, this is my waist strap. Now, I didn't have a piece that is 104 inches, which is, like 3 yards. So it was scrap. So I cut strips I did have one leftover piece this one was 29.5 inches long. So I just cut 2 more pieces that were shorter. And I'm going to put the end of this on each end. I have 2. And I'm going to put one on each end of this. I'm going to show you how to do that to make that 104. So it's 2.5 by 104. And then the little strap that's going to hold my towel, this one is 1.5 by 10 inches. Let's get started sewing. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is make my straps. So I want to make my waist strap longer. So if you can see on here, I have the fabric laid so that the little hearts are facing down. So you want to take your strap, the extension that you're doing, you're going to make sure it lays the same way. And so it would be going this way. See, both hearts are all facing the same way. So I'm going to take this and fold it down, and I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to sew from corner to corner. So when I open it up, see how the hearts are still down? So, and I'm going to sew it from this corner to that corner. This corner meaning where this, so I'll just draw myself a little line. You can also, after you make your first stitch, hold your thread here, and so you can see the straight line. But for beginners, you can certainly draw a straight line so that you have right up to that corner. And I'll stitch along that line that I just made. And when you do the other end, because you don't want to put the two short ends together, right? You don't want to have these two ends short at the same time. You'll do the opposite on this other end with the other side. Again, making sure, since this pattern, the little blue hearts are facing down, when you take this piece, you make sure the little hearts are facing down, and you turn it this way, so that when you open it back up, it'll be that way. So I'm going to go sew mine to lengthen them, and then I'll show you the next step. I'll meet you back here. Okay, I stitched both ends, and I clipped it and just pressed it open. Now, the first thing I did was, because I decided I wanted my ends to be at a little angle, is I just pressed in the corners. Just press them in. And I did it on both ends. And then I'm going to fold it in half, like this, and stitch the whole length of it. The whole thing. And this I'm going to stitch at 8, and this I'm going to stitch at 1/4, all the way the entire strip. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my little strap that's going to be holding my towel. I'm going to stitch that. Also, this one I'm only going to stitch at about 1/8 because it's only 1 1/2, and I want it to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to stitch that right there all the way down, the whole length of it, and just turn it. And this one's the same thing, the next strap. I'm just going to, I don't need that pin anymore because now I know which one is which. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn this one right sides together, and I'm going to stitch this all the way down. This one again, 1/4 inch. The only one I'm going to do 1/8 is this, the towel strap, but the rest are going to be 1/4 inch. All the way down, and turn it right side out, and turn this one right side out. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, I sewed all of them, flipped them right side out, and then I went ahead and top stitched them on 1/8 of an inch on each side. And here I wanted the corners of my strap to be, so I had pressed them in. So that's what it looks like after you top stitch them. And what I did is I went ahead and mark the center with a pin because I'm going to need that later. So there's my waist strap, there's my neck, and the towel strap, both of them you don't need to finish the ends because they're going to be in the seam. So I top stitch both of those. Now I'm going to prepare the pocket, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the top, well, I think, yeah, I'll have the blue just like the rest of it, the blue going down. I'm going to go ahead and press the top of this, or it doesn't matter which side, bottom or the top. I'm going to press this 1/4 inch, put right sides together, and I'm going to stitch the sides, the side and the bottom that is not pressed, turn it right side out, and top stitch the folded edge closed. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, I finished sewing my pocket. And what I ended up doing, I changed my mind. Instead of having that side seam being one side, having that seam being on the side. After I sewed the side seam, I centered it, and then I stitched the bottom seam. And I had pressed the top, remember, 1/4 inch. And then when I turned it right side out, I went ahead and top stitched that. This is now going to be the top of my fabric for the pocket. So this is my top piece. It'll be the top of my pocket. And then this is still, the bottom here is still open, but when I stitch this in place and then zigzag stitch all the way around, that'll all be, I don't need to have a double set of stitching there. So that's fine being open for now. It'll get closed when we stitch it in place. But before I do that, I am going to put my neck strap on. And I went ahead and pressed the sides and the top 1/4 inch. And what I'm going to do is I want to do another 1/4 inch. I want to press it another 1/4 inch. on both sides because I want that mark. I want to know where that is because that's going to be my stitching line. Okay, so, and I'm going to, I don't want it all the way to the edge. I want it kind of over a little bit. I think it'll look nice if it's like a 1/2 inch from the edge. And since when I fold it in and fold it in again, it'll be 1/2 inch. I'm going to put this at the 1 inch mark. And you just figure out which side you think is the prettier side. I think I like the little blue hearts. That'll be my pretty side. And so you want this part of your seam, because the one will be the folded edge and one will be that. You want that on the away from your neck. So you're going to put that to the outside of your fabric. So I'm going to mark this at 1 inch from, and you want to unfold all your pressed part, and I'm going to mark it at 1 inch. And where I'm going to stitch it is at that fold mark that I made. So basically I'm stitching it a 1/2 inch down. I'm going to stitch it right there so that when I fold this and fold this, I'm going to zigzag my raw edges here. I'm going to zigzag those just to keep them tucked in. When I fold this over and fold this over, because I don't want this big bulk of fabric right here where that is. But after I fold it and I fold it over again, when this is on this side of it, if you can picture that, then I'll have this piece of, imagine this piece of fabric like this. So on this side, this will all be folded up, but I'll have this piece of fabric here that I can do my, I'm going to reinforce it by doing the square with an X in it after I stitch the top. But when I go to stitch the top, I want this already on here because when this is like this, and I do my top stitching to hold that hem in place, I want it to go through the strap at the same time. And then I'll just do my X and my square there. You could also stitch that top and then just add this afterwards. I'm going this extra step because I want that extra one extra row of stitching that'll be in this, because I'm going to stitch it here. It'll be in this where it's going to be folded over. It'll be in that hem. So it'll actually have 3 different types of security, if you will, so that it'll stay, stitched to the top. So I'm going to stitch these in place, and I'm going to make sure that this isn't twisted when I do it. I'm going to stitch those in place. Then I'm going to fold it, and then I'm going to top stitch across the top. I'm going to also do the sides. I'm going to fold those and fold them again, and I'm going to top stitch the sides, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I stitched my neck band on, and I top stitched the little X. I top stitched down both sides and across the top, and now I'm going to put the pocket on. So basically, I'm just going to center it in this square. I'll measure, but I'm going to center this in the square, and I'm just going to top stitch the 3 sides here, and then I'm going to zigzag just to keep those folded edges in all along, all 3. And then I'll meet you back here. Okay, I'm all done sewing my pocket on. Isn't this adorable? So it's got the neck and the pocket, and I've done the sides. It's all ready to go for the bottom. I think it's looking so cute. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bottom part. Now, I left the selvage on, and because the selvage is sturdy and it's not going to unravel, I'm just going to press it and hem it. So the bottom will be hemmed. I'm going to press the sides 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch and stitch the sides. So the bottom and the sides, I'm going to go ahead and hem all those. And then I am going to do up at the top, I'm going to stitch along here just so I can figure out the gather. And what I'm going to do is I want the extended part about a couple of inches on each side not to be gathered. So that will be flat. So I'm only going to gather the interior part, and I want that to match up to, I'm going to do the gather so that there'll be just a little bit of gather here, and on each end I'll have about 4 inches, and the gather will be in there. So I'm going to go ahead and hem the bottom and the sides, and I'm going to get this set up for gathering, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, I stitched the hem all the way around the apron part, and then I measured in 4 inches, and I did a basting stitch. I measured in 4 inches on both sides. I had the center marked here. I'm going to lay that down. Actually, I'm going to lay this one down first. This is the bottom, obviously. And I'm going to mark the center of this. And I'm going to take that center and this marked center, and I'm placing them together so that the 2 centers will match. And I'm going to pin that so that the raw edges are together. And then I'm just going to gather both sides by pulling on one of my threads. There's so many different ways you can do it. You can zigzag over a piece of thread, but since this is such a short section, I just did regular basting. So I'm just going to gather, and I want to bring up from my 4-inch mark, which I'm going to pin. I want to bring that up to the side. So I'm just going to pull this and just offer a little bit of gather, or just drag it into the center a little bit, just a little gentle. And when that matches up, I'm going to pin that in place. And then I'm just going to work with these gathers to try to make them somewhat even. Spread them out a little bit. So I'll just have a cute little gather to the front of my apron. I'll pin that in place. I'll do the other side, and then I'm going to stitch right here and pull out the basting. I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch and then pull out the basting. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, as you can see, I finished top stitching it all along here. And I just want to show you on the back. If you wanted to, you could press it over 1/4 inch and then press it over another 1/4 inch and then do this step that we just did. But I didn't do that. Didn't think about it till later. But I went back just so that raw edge wouldn't be, wouldn't unravel. I just zigzagged along there. So the next step you're going to do is turn it over and decide which side, if you're doing your towel strap like I am, which side do you want that on? Do you want it on the right side? Do you want it on the left side? You got to decide where you want that. And since I'm right-handed, I'm going to put it on my right side, which is going to be, when you're, facing it up, it's going to be your left side when you're looking down at it. And I am going to decide where to put it. And since I want it more to the right side, I am going to stitch it in place right here at the edge of the side. And make sure it's not twisted so that it lays nice and flat. And I'm going to come over to almost the center of the apron, just shot about a 1/2 inch off. You can take it as far as you want, but that whole towel will fit in there. And actually, I think I'm going to take it to the center. I think that'll look better. I'm going to take it right to the center. It's long enough, so it should work. All right, and I'm going to top stitch that in place. Okay, and then the next step is I'm going to take the center of my strap, and I want this pointed corner to face inward. So this is the seam side and this is the folded side. So I'm going to make sure that the seam side is down. So I'm going to find my center pin. Whoops. Looks like my center pin fell out. Okay, so we'll just redo it. Not a big deal. I have to find that on the floor later. Okay. So there's my center. So I'm going to take the center, I want that down, and I'm going to put that center on my center mark right there. And I'm going to line up the top of, make sure my gathers are out of the way. I'm going to line up the top edge of my folded edge with this seam. I'm going to run it right along that seam, all the way to the edge, just like that. And then I'm going to pin it, and then I'm going to top stitch on both the top and the bottom part of the strap. So right along those stitches all the way to this side. When I get to the side, I'm going to do a vertical top stitch. So I'm going to sew all that on, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, it's all done. Isn't it adorable? Okay. Got the little loop. Tie it in the back. Put my towel in my loop. Then when I need to wash my hands, I just have it and dry, and then I can replace it as needed. Oh my gosh. Isn't this the cutest? It would be a cute little gift. It's just an easy little simple one. You can make it much fancier. You could make this one piece and have it slope down on the side, but this is the way I like it. So if you enjoyed making this with me, come make more with me. Follow and subscribe for more, and have a great day sewing.